Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock, practicing necromancer. And this evening, I want to bring up a topic that really goes a long way within certain traditions. We've all heard of the Marimberos. We've all heard of the warlock. We've all heard of the Bokor or the Capilata. You know, the bad guys of so-called society. Okay. Now, what's interesting is the fact that when you get into witchcraft, sorcery, demonology, spirituality, there are different types of practitioners. If we look at the Omega would be similar to the Bruo in Brugeria, Santeria and Palo practices who run botanicas and perform sorcery for hire on the side, in back rooms and everything. And it's kind of cool because of the fact that if you think about what an omega is, it is someone who does not mind being solitary. I mean, if you are a practitioner of necromancy, for an example, like myself, you're going to find yourself alone a lot of the time. And it's very interesting to see very few people who are actually comfortable being solitary. And that means being alone. Okay. Betas are more interested in going with the flow. They're more interested in being a part of things, feeling welcomed, being told what to do, what to believe, you know, always seeking help, and that's the funny part because if you think about all these individuals online today who are coming to you, how do I join you? Teach me, you know, um, share your gnosis with me, yada yada yada. It's interesting to see how they do that. And then you got the alpha perspective. The alpha perspective is a practitioner that is more interested in dominating, always in a combative mode. You know, they've got to be the center of attention. They've got to always be popular. And this is why when you see certain individuals constantly putting out videos, okay, constantly putting out videos and constantly being the center of attention. We call these attention whores. And that's basically what they are, attention whores. And they sit there and they can make up any excuse that they want. It's always about popularity. It could be about, the numbers, the algorithm, which is the most latest thing I've been noticing on social media, and especially here on YouTube. And it's funny because it's about subscriptions. It's about getting that like. It's about feeding that algorithm. Yada yada yada. It's funny as all hell, and it's about dominating. It's about a false state of power. It's about being the center. Like I said, the center of attention. Who can get the most content out there? Who can be the most notarized, and so forth. But then you got the omega. Once you get past the omega, beta, and alpha status, then you have what is known as the stigma male, the stigma practitioner. And these are the types that really don't give a shit. They're not interested in fitting in. They're not interested in worldly things. It's not about ego or pride. It's not about, being liked or being associated with anyone. When you look at this particular kind of practitioner, it really comes down to self-preservation in the purest sense. It's not just self-gratification. You look at those who spend all their time in a library, for an example. Always got their nose in a book, for an example. I mean, I've got two bags right here, right down at my feet, right here, full of books. I love to read. I love to study. And the thing is it doesn't matter if it's psychology, it doesn't matter if it's thanatology, it doesn't matter if it's various different traditions. You know, in this case, I've got the African Caribbean traditions with me today, as I'm sitting here in my ex's apartment because of the fact that I'm dog sitting. And it was interesting because earlier today I was sitting at the park, a dog park, and they had trails and different kennels for small, medium, and large dogs. In this case, I was in the one with the large dogs because that's my dog is a Siberian Husky, purebred little girl, 11 months old, and she's amazing, sweetest dog you'll ever meet. This particular day, this afternoon, I was sitting there just doing my thing. She let a few growls out of her, getting a little vocal, and it's funny because a lot of people hear this, they think, oh my God, they're aggressive. This is like one of those hostility type things where they'll just curse your ass out of into damnation just for the sheer pleasure because you said no. You looked at somebody funny, oh my God, they're going to attack me, whatever. Well, guess what? I believe it was what's the Stoic name there? It was a philosopher by the name of Seneca. There we go. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once stated that the most wholesome imagination is always worse than reality. If you think about your fears, then you're going to fear everything in life until you learn about it. Only then do you start to prosper and grow. You start to learn. Okay. Now, in this particular instance, I had a dog around me, a couple of them. Always, they always come over because I got a small pouch full of treats hooked to my belt loop, and I always keep it there. So when I go out, she does something good, I give her a treat. It's part of obedience training. So here it is. In this particular instance, we're getting ready to leave, and more dogs showed up. And I was in the middle of a conversation with another dog owner, and we were discussing her dogs. And while I was talking to this individual, some of the dogs were getting a little close to me, but at the same time, they were really getting right up in her face, you know, and she got very, very aggressive. I mean, that's part of the wolf breed, if you will, of Siberian Huskies. And it's not just them, it's just about all dogs do it. It's just sensory overload at that point. And when they have enough and had enough, they will let you know. But you got to look at their stance. You got to look at the way they well, let's just call it the body language, not just the vocal, the hormonal tone. Kind of like you as a practitioner doing ceremonial and ritualistic rites. Okay. When you're cursing someone, just out of an example, you're using foul language, you're insulting them, you're spitting on them, you're looking down at them, you're dominating them. Okay. This is basically the alpha frame of mind, if you will. So when you think about animals such as dogs, are they any different than you or I? The answer is no. When we have enough, we get vocal. Sometimes we get downright vile, especially when our blood sugar is low. So, a stigma in this case, which was me, in this case, I was the alpha. And it was funny because of the fact that the dog, this dog decided it's time, I've had enough, and she started getting rowdy. I went to reach down. She turned wide-eyed, realized it was me, held back the bite, but she was still showing fang and pushing forward. Okay, so here it is. I spoke at that point. All the dogs that were in that little circle suddenly just stopped and looked. The owners looked at me and asked, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" I want you to think about it for just a minute. When you speak as an alpha, as a pack leader, I want you to think about what you do for these animals. It would be like being a father. It would be like being an elder in a religious organization. Your duty is to your pack, your congregation, your flock. You keep their bellies full. You give them plenty of love and attention. They're going to be loyal for life. Okay. But here it is. When they get out of line, you have to discipline. And when you discipline, they listen, especially when you get that one tone and it's like, fuck me. What happened? What do I do? Well, guess what? She stayed by my side after that. Okay. So here it is. When you look at what a practitioner is, a sorcerer, have you ever wondered why people go to a sorcerer that really doesn't give a shit about humanity? I want you to think about that. It does not matter if it is a brewer running a botanica. It doesn't matter if it's a bokor running a peristill. It does not matter if it is a warlock within a coven, even a solitary practitioner. Somebody who knows what they're doing is always recognized. I'm reminded recently of a client that referred to me as a true shaman. A true shaman. I'm not a shaman, I'm a necromancer. But the practices are similar. So even getting that honorary, reply, that view is always a good thing. But when you look at your flock and you look at your pack, your litter, or whatever, you know, it's one of those things where you're giving the advice to a child. Okay. Does not matter if it's a woman, does not matter if it's a child. Okay. When somebody comes to you asking for your service, okay, you give them a price. Consumerism, price, supply and demand, basically. Okay. When they come to you and they say, "Hey, I need a reading done." Okay, here's 150. I'm going to go in, do that reading, get that reading done for that client. Guess what? Client satisfied. Okay, how do I do this? How, let's say, for example, there's an attachment or the client needs to be spiritually cleansed. What's the next step? What do we do? Well, there's a number of different readings we can do. There's different types of rituals that we can do as well. But this is the best way that I would recommend it. Okay. Give them the cost. Well, okay. we'll do it. Well, a lot of times when customers and clients come to me, by the time they get to me, they're on the verge of leaving. They're on the verge of breaking down and just walking away. Okay, they've had enough. They're broke. They're at the end of their rope. The legal system's not helping. The society's not helping. You know, so they're at the end of their rope. So when somebody like me goes to the altar, calls forth, my patrons and patronesses that I work with and say, hey, I'm doing a reading for this particular person. Show me what I'm overlooking. Use me as a conduit. I'm letting you work through me to the cards, to the tarot, or to the runes. Maybe even to, say, for an example, the scrying mirror, pyromancy, the candle magic, okay? Incense, chemomancy, even. Any way you look at it through divination practices, you're letting them use you to get that reading for that client. That way you have a pure sense of how to help them. Okay? Now you look at being an alpha. What does an alpha do? The same thing. They help their communities, right? Their pack. So when I speak, she listens. I walked away. She follows. She knows who her alpha is. You don't have to force it. You don't have to make yourself into something you're not. She knows. Okay? So it's interesting because of the fact when I did this today, I also showed a couple kids what was wrong between what they were doing and the dog. They couldn't believe just that one little movement, that one little action made that pup go submissive. And all I did was hold that leash in one spot. I kept the dog right where I wanted it. Not where he wanted to go, but where I wanted it to go. After a couple of seconds, he surrendered control. He became submissive. Now think about that for just a minute. How do we compare this action to sorcery? What happens when you perform spells night after night after night, or even throughout the day and night at sporadic times? You get into that routine, right? But here it is. You're inching your way towards your victim, your target. You're wearing them down. You're teaching them, hey, I'm your superior. I'm here to teach you a lesson. That is what a Dukan does, Indonesian shaman. That is what a Brua or Bruo does in Latino communities. That is what a Merimberos does. That is what a Bokor or a Kaplata does. When we perform sorcery, it's not about popularity. It is not about right or wrong, black or white magic. It's not even about being liked. That's the difference between a stigma and an alpha. We're not competing for popularity. We're doing the work we're paid to do. We're constantly learning and bettering ourselves. That, my friends, that is the difference between a stigma and an alpha. That is the difference between an omega, a beta, an alpha, and a stigma, and a sorcerer. So I want you to just, the next time you go out and you see a bunch of dogs, you know, walking on the street, being walked even. I want you to just sit there and watch them. Watch how they act. Watch how their handlers, their humans, control them. Do they stay in one spot while the animal is pulling and tugging? You see, my dog, she likes to, how should I say this? She likes to look cute. And so what she does is she'll go down in the front with her butt up in the air and then all of a sudden lay down and try to inch forward like that's going to make a difference. In the world of sorcery, it don't work like that. It don't work like that. You're not there to look cute. You're there to do the work. That means you have to study. That means you have to experiment. That means you have to evolve. But it's up to you if you wish to be popular, be an individual, an omega, a beta. Are you going to be a follower or a leader? Personally, that's on you. But when I speak, my pack listens. And I find it interesting because my son listens. He comes to me with everything. At 6 years old, he comes to me for anything. And, you know, doesn't matter if it's something he did that he's proud of, drawing. It doesn't matter if it's, wanting to play cars, action figures or whatever. It doesn't matter if he wants to watch TV. If he fell, he'll show me, the day before, he'll come to me and say, Dada, this is what happened. And it's because he's comfortable enough to talk to me. I don't have to sit there and go, why'd you do that? Do you know what you did? Do I have to take a rolled up newspaper to your nose? No. Don't have to do any of that. Why? Because a good leader does not have to do any of that. All they have to do is listen. All they have to do is take care of their little community, their house, their family. Working with spirits is the exact same thing. You give your offerings, you give your sacrifices, you give your time, your energy, you're putting in the work, you're becoming dedicated and committed to your path, constantly researching and delving into gnosis that is so far removed from society that it's downright scary. And it's funny because I'm reminded of Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic. This was Marcus was a Roman senator. And it didn't matter who was running the country. It didn't matter who was coming into power or losing the power. He always remained in power because he had the enlightenment. He had the knowledge. He was able to adapt. He once said, when you look at the past, you see nation toppling nation. You look at the future, do you see the same? So the trick to changing is to first recognize that something needs to be changed. Therefore, growth is needed. Now you look at a child, an adept in the arts. You take any religious faction, what happens? You learn, you grow. You have to read the materials. You have to purchase them. You got to study and apply them to your life. When I became a dad, it was the happiest day of my life. That and the jokes from the doctors. when they found out that I was a practitioner. Can't believe one of them actually suggested I had brought a Ouija board. Should have brought a Ouija board. Funny as all hell, right? Here you got your son's mother giving birth and all that blood and everything coming out along with the fetus and everything like that. And the doctor looks at you and says, "Where's your Ouija board?" Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. But the point is that even my ex, my son's mother, still comes to me. She still asks for my advice. We still hang out, even though she's betrayed me. My son's always there. All four cats are there. Even the dog, who's the newest addition to the family, is always there. The point is that a practitioner is a balancer of the elements. What this means is that when the world is out of balance, meaning injustice is reigning, people who come to a sorcerer, a true sorcerer, is looking for that balance to be restored and justice served. That is why they come to a stigma male or female. Because they're not there to be liked. They're not there for popularity. They're there because they do what they love doing. It's kind of like working at Dunkin'. I work at Dunkin', and yet I keep telling him, you might as well just put a cot there because if I'm working or not, I'm always there drinking coffee. I love coffee. But here it is. That's the perspective. You can label it all you want. You can be a pretender all you want. It was once told to me by a voodoo practitioner of Nigerian and Ghana voodoo. He said, once you have shown your power once in Africa, people are going to flock to you because they know your magic is real. He has personally seen my magic come to fruition overnight. Some of my clients have seen manifested results within a day or two, 24 to 48 hours. Within 2-3 months, all of a sudden, it's like what they asked for has come to fruition. You see, that's the difference between somebody who is fake, who's going to sit there and make a shoebox, and somebody who actually goes to a store and picks up an actual box, takes the time to place seals and sigilliums on it, and forge it from a regular decorative box or box for storage and make it into a Dibbit box, sealing it with candle wax and literally either burying it in the woods, taking it to a cemetery, putting it into an open grave, or tossing it into a river. That's the difference between a fake and a real practitioner. And when you show your truth of who you are and what you're about, people take notice. People take notice. Like at the dog park today. All I did was say one thing. All the dogs stopped and just looked like, oh shit, we're in trouble now. But you know what? I also gave them a reward for good behavior. Because that is what an elder does. That's the difference between an elder, somebody who's experienced, who treats them well. My ex hates that about me. Got 4 cats and a dog. All of them flock towards me. Every single one of them. It's hilarious. But the difference is that with the dog, with Opal, It's funny because I can let go of the leash and she'll run right across the parking lot, right to her mama. And if I call her, she comes right back to me. But they know they're highly intelligent, just like the spirits that we work with. They look at us practitioners as children. We're the children of the gods. We're their disciples. We're their demigods. You know, we're those beings that really are dedicated to the magical arts and wanting to evolve. That's the difference. So, like us to them, they are to us. Really. Must be so hard being a pup. She just let out a sigh. She's down here between me and the door. As you can see, the door is behind me, and she's literally right here, sprawled right out. But yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people don't realize that just about any type of animal can become a familiar. And that's the other thing. Cats can be familiars, dogs can be familiars, ravens, blackbirds, they can be familiars, owls, any kind of animal, even a snake. And it's interesting because when they choose to associate with you on their terms, you forge a much better connection. When you go to a horse farm and you are trying to gain a horse's trust, you don't just sit there and slap a saddle on the horse. You don't just jump on its back and go, let's giddy up. No. You literally sit there in the middle of that stall, that training ring, and you let that horse, come to you. No matter, I was once asked, how long does it take? How long does it take? And this was by a potential client. This was that I had years ago. And I looked right at the client and I said, as long as it takes. You see, that's the thing about magic. That's the thing about spell work. It comes to fruition on its own time. When you petition the gods for a better job or to bring a familiar into your life, doesn't matter if you go to Belial, Baal, Viney, Zagon, Seer, Lucifer, whoever. It takes time. It takes time. Everything takes time. And the thing is, a wise man once said, do not think of it like a race, but more like a marathon. You got to take your time and learn as much as you can before your time is up. Because when you go on to the next realm, guess what? That's what happens when you learn apotheosis in its purest sense, because you're learning everything that you can. You're delving into everything that you can. It's not given to you up front. You're earning it. So when you go to the next world, the next dimension, the next spiritual plane of existence, be it the hells, be it Sheol, heaven, hell, whatever you want to call it, guess what? That is when that reward is going to be bestowed upon you. That is the divine creation right there. But it comes down to free will. So when you want to step up to the plate and be a leader, then you got to decide what kind of leader you want to be. I had a apostolic minister years ago, before I even got into the ministry, look at me and literally pointed out the ministry to me. because he watched how I dealt with people. He said my advice was sound. I was good. I listened to what they had to say and gave the best possible advice. Even when it came to prayer, for an example, no matter what tradition, you always got prayer, you got worship. And it's funny because he said, you even sat there and you prayed with them. You did what needed to be done, but you gave the best advice. I recommend the ministry to you. Have you ever considered the ministry? And I'm like, me in the ministry, I'm a warrior, I'm a fighter. You know, I'm I'm more interested in fighting and causing chaos. But it was soon after that that I realized that people were starting to see me in a different light. It was more, they stopped seeing me as somebody equal to them, but they saw me as somebody that was in the hierarchy. I was an elder, and I didn't even notice. When I was working for Tractor Supply, there was this pagan that I worked with, and she and I always had good conversations. And it was funny because of the fact she told me point blank to my face, I see you more as an elder. Wow. Do you know what that does to somebody who hasn't noticed that they've been elevated in the back and they don't realize it because they're too busy putting in the work and the time? This is something that takes years to get into. This is something that takes years to master. It's like learning astral projection. It's not something that you can do once and all of a sudden do. No, this is something that takes place over years, months, days, weeks. It's like learning to perform the perfect evocation, learning the basic groundwork for spell casting. You want successful rites, then you got to figure out a formula that works for you and based off the spirits that you work with. But you also got to listen to those spirits too. Spirits talk. Spirits talk. And I'm going to say that one more time. Spirits talk. They're more alert, more knowledgeable than you or I in this realm, in this reality, this plane of existence. That is why when you commune with them, you want to give offerings, you want to give sacrifices, you want to invite them in and work with them. It doesn't matter if it's the Loa, it doesn't matter if it's the Orisha, it doesn't matter if it's demonic or angelics. And the funny thing is, when you get into the ministry and you become a ordained minister, a lot of people will look at you as a multi-faith minister and go, wait, you actually deal with Christians too? It's like, yeah, I'll speak to them on their own tongue. Isn't that considered a conflict of interest? Really? Why would it be? Have you noticed where their texts come from? Have you done your research into them? This topic comes from this, and this. See, a lot of people don't know this. They don't realize that demonolatry, like Satan, because everybody speaks about Satan being the murderer, the bad guy, only interested in your soul and to kill you. They don't stop to think. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that he's the enemy of God. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that he's a mass murderer or that he's a killer. It does say that he's an adversary. It does say that he is a tempter. Ironically, Job chapter 1, he was actually sent after Job. Now, refresh my memory, who sent him after Job? Oh, right, the Christian God. Now, here's the kicker. It was the Christian God that told Satan, you can do whatever you want to him, but you can't kill him. So why are you referring to him as a killer? He never killed. Interesting how that works, right? This is what happens when ignorance is bliss. You want to put your head in the proverbial sandbox? Go right ahead. You can be like everybody else. Be like the alpha. Be like the omega. Be like the beta. Or you can evolve into something more. I look back at the last 6 years of my life. I've noticed a huge difference of where I used to be to where I'm at today. A huge difference. I have a family that I watch over, that I protect. And yes, I even do sorcery. And every single one of them comes to me. They come to me because I am a good male. I am a good practitioner. Why? Because I give good advice. I'm always there. I'm providing for my family. I'm providing for my coven. I'm providing for my brothers and my sisters. Why? Because that's what a good elder does. You put your pack before yourself. Plain and simple. It's not about being liked. It's not about being popular. It's not about ego or pride. It's about doing what needs to be done. You're my responsibility. She is my responsibility. My son is my responsibility. My apprentices are my responsibility. My oath to those that I work with and associate with is my responsibility. What about you? What about you? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind when you evolve into something more? You see the point. And I believe I got the message across. So whatever you preach, always back it up. And always make yourself available to the public. And you know, the funny thing is, before I go, I was sitting at Dunkin' tonight, waiting for my son's mother to contact me when she was going on break so that I can bring her something to eat. And it was funny because of the fact that I was listening to these two high school kids talking about the Bible, talking about their faith in their God. And it was funny because one of them was asking the other one, what part of the Bible did that spoke to their soul, to this kid's soul, you know? And it was funny because when you think about it, I looked at it and it was like, I was just sitting there and I'm like, look at the law, Leviticus. What about the Canaan laws that allow you to become a bishop or an archbishop? Describes what it takes to be one of these elders. And it was funny because of the fact that I took them off by surprise when I said that. And it was funny because this one here went over to say hello. But that's the funny thing is because people recognize you. They know who you are and what you're about. The community watches because you're held at a higher standard. 25 years ago, I wouldn't have known that. I wasn't interested in knowing that until I became an elder, until I was seen as an elder, earned my rank and my title, my office, just like Satan did. And it was interesting because of the fact when you realize that, you got respect for what you do. You got respect for how people see you. And that is the moral of the story. People see the difference. People are impressed with those that just doesn't give a shit. People respect those who know what they're talking about. And when you put others to shame because you share actual sources, actual references to back up what you're preaching, people take notice. And it's like these motherfuckers over here are just running their mouth. They don't have a fucking clue. They're just trying to compete like an alpha. But this guy, he's answering our questions. He's different. Why? What makes him different? What makes him separate from the pack? What makes him separate from the herd? And then when they start watching and you guide them to materials, it could be your YouTube page, your Facebook page, or TikTok page, whatever. Then they start seeing, wow, this guy has spent years studying and practicing various different traditions of religions and philosophies. Imagine how many hours he spent researching the laws where these traditions such as necromancy, death rites, and from region to region throughout the world. The old names, what herbs can be used for what purpose. Just put yourself in that mind state. When you come across somebody like that, you look at these other fools and it's like, what the fuck's wrong with them? What is wrong with these idiots? This guy, he's not just doing the work, he's applying it to his life and he's sharing, teaching those who earnestly want to learn, to know. I was recently contacted this morning. Come to think about it, I got to get back on the TikTok and actually look at the messages, because this one individual actually messaged me and asked me to teach him. And I asked him, I said, do you earnestly want to learn? Do you truly want to learn? Do you want to become an apprentice of mine? Because you will be expected to do the work and to prove to me that you are doing the work. When I give you an assignment, I expect you to do it, just like a teacher in grade school, college even. When they give you your homework, they expect you to do the homework and to turn it in. No one's going to do that work for you. You've got to be the one responsible enough to do it. If they just hand it to you and go, do whatever the fuck you want to do, how are you going to learn? Especially if they do the work for you. That's the point. To rise up and be separate, to be that true individual who doesn't give a shit about society, doesn't care about what country is attacking what country. Who cares who's running for office? You're doing what you do best. That's what people take notice of. To some, it's actually attracting, stimulating even. Because they want to know, why are you not interested in all this? Why are you that lone fish going upstream instead of down the stream? What makes you different? What makes you tick? You see, it's that mystery. It's that curiosity. It's that curiosity as to why. Again, the Stoic Seneca colorfully put it. The imagination is always worse than reality. And as Marcus so colorfully put it, when you look at history, why is nobody learning from history? It's because they don't want to go against society. They don't want to become outsiders. They're too afraid. So what it comes down to is the repeating cycle. History has shown that this is all it's going to be. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter, if it's Democrats running the place or Republicans. It doesn't matter if it's fucking liberals. Hell, liberals always lose anyways. So, but that's the moral of the story right there, right? But if you learn to sit back and adapt, to become that outsider and not give a shit about anything else, just do you. Just do you. That's all it comes down to, is just do you. You will rise above everything. You'll be the most feared being because, number one, you have the experience. Number two, you put the time and dedication into a committed path working. And three, you've shown the world how powerful you can be through knowledge. You're setting the example. And you're rising above. It's not about segregation. It's not about race, class, or whatever. It's about doing you and doing what makes you happy. But you got to be there for your pack, your litter. And yes, I just used a cat term and a dog term right there. A litter for cats and a pack for dogs. I'm the leader of the pack for a reason. People look up to me because I have that knowledge. But I got to give those who help me get there their due. Because no one's a self-made man. Eventually, you're going to get to that point where it's like, I'm not going to dub shit down anymore. I'm just not in it for the games. I'm not in it for the pride or the ego. I don't give a shit about this or that. It's the same old shit, just another fucking day. I'm just going to do me. You see, that is when you start growing. That is when you start becoming something more. And you become the weapon that people fear. Because you are the force of change. All right. With that said, have a good day. Good night, wherever you are. If you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button. If you want to be notified when my next video is, hit that little bell thingy. And until next time, I'm out.